Hi, my name is Clare and I'm the mother of 3 teenagers with FASD.
I'm Jessica, a PhD researcher specialising in educational interventions for children with FASD.
And together we are the hosts of Spotlight on FASD, the UK's first podcast dedicated to shining a spotlight on fetal alcohol spectrum disorders.
FASD is a condition caused by prenatal alcohol exposure that affects hundreds of thousands of children across the UK.
And we're here to bring these conversations out of the shadows and make sure that no one living with FASD feels alone.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Spotlight on FASD. This is episode 5 now, and we are going to be talking about shame and blame. So the title of this podcast is No Shame, No Blame. And it's a theme that runs throughout all of the podcasts we do, all of the work we do, all of the conversations that we have around FASD. No shame, no blame is at the core of everything that Claire and I do as individuals in this area. And we want to bring focus to that for this episode because we feel it's really, really important to address, and that we need to just highlight a few things as we're going on this journey and raising awareness of FASD and sharing it with people.
So I think we've touched on it before because it's at the core of everything that we do with all of the work that we do, that there can be no shame and there can be no blame. There's no room for either of those things in the FASD journey because there are too many other things to be dealing with, way more important things to be dealing with. And I think in a nutshell, I was thinking about this earlier, that when it's happened, because obviously once it's happened, there's no taking it back, and there can be lots of reasons why it has occurred during pregnancy. We'll touch on them in a little bit, but once it's happened, the only way we can deal with it effectively as a society is once it has happened and you do know that that's what you are dealing with in that child or that person or that adult, even that line instantly has to be drawn. And you never look back to like why or how or whose fault was it, because it's just such a slippery slope, and there's just no place for it. So I know you have really you said something earlier that really, it's really quite powerful, and actually it is totally true. What did you say about how it's not drinking, it's not women drinking alcohol?
So I'm going to go back a little bit actually. When I started my PhD, I started telling people about FASD. I started explaining what I was doing, and I had a lot of people who would then share that story. People would say, "Oh, what's Jessica doing?" And people around me would say, "Oh, she works with kids whose mothers were alcoholics." And it was at that point that I realized that how, they were never words that I said, never, ever, ever. But that's how this was misinterpreted by people who weren't given all the information. So the way, over the last 5 years or so, as I've been doing my PhD, the way my understanding of FASD has changed and my beliefs around this and my thoughts are, I now see this not as a condition that has been caused by a mother drinking during pregnancy. I see this as a condition caused by societal norms. We as society have normalized alcohol use to the point where a woman who may be in the early stages of her pregnancy is at a party, is at a wedding, or just out, and feels this immense pressure when offered a drink, when all eyes are on her as she says, "Oh no, I'm all right, I'll just have a Coke, or I'll just have an orange juice." And that right there for me is the problem. That's what I believe this condition is caused by. It's that attitude. It's that we as a society have done, and that we as a society can change. Because whilst we have this relationship with alcohol, and while it is framed in this way, FASD will be here. That's it. You know, we can educate people as much as we like about the dangers of drinking during pregnancy, and that's something we'll come to. But whilst everybody is saying, oh, just have a glass of wine, that
you feel pressured to do. I think in so many different walks of life, if you because it is just so normal and so socially acceptable that people truly believe, most people truly believe, and I used to be one of these, that it doesn't really carry any risk. Yeah, you're gonna get drunk and you're gonna have a hangover, but you don't take a real look at what it's doing to your body and how dangerous it is and what a toxin it is. And like a little disclaimer now, I'm not kind of on any kind of a anti-alcohol campaign or to say that nobody should be drinking alcohol. If I've ever got the chance to be able to live with a hangover the next day, like I love to be able to have a few glasses of wine. I do enjoy having alcohol, but I now know how dangerous it is, but it's just so socially acceptable that quite often, and certainly I think when you were, someone in the very early ages of the pregnancy, even if they do know they're at that point, but it might be so early, they don't want to share it with anybody. The first thing someone would say, like the amount of anxiety that would cause, like, oh, I've got this wedding to go to, and people are gonna ask, people are gonna know, what people are gonna think. The minute I say I'm not, and you have so many people pretending to drink alcohol and pretending to gradually get drunk, but actually they're pregnant and they're not touching any of it but they don't feel comfortable enough to just be like, oh, I'm not drinking tonight, because most people would be like, what? Why? And that you're so right, because when the first time you said that to me, I was like, oh, that's a bold statement, that's a big thing to say, but actually you are absolutely right, you are perfectly right. And it made me think of a conversation I had not long ago with someone who was really, really panic stricken that her late teen son, nearly 18, she was convinced that he'd maybe been smoking some marijuana, and like, oh my God, absolute end of the world, and he's going to be a drug addict in 2 weeks' time, and this is the end of it. And I said, is this how scared you are if you always had like 6 or 8 cans of lager? Like, is this how scared you would be? Well, no, because that's, and I went, that's what? Tell me what your thought process is now. If him smoking some marijuana is terrifying you, I need to know what him consuming enough alcohol to get him drunk is. How's that making you feel? Because if that's not scaring you, and we're not saying everybody's got to stop drinking, but we do, just because if everyone was educated and aware of the dangers of alcohol in a human body, nobody would consume a single mouthful if they knew they were pregnant. Nobody. But people just don't know. And it's so, it is such a dangerous thing, but something that our society has, it serves the best interests of a lot of organisations, that it is something that we are encouraged to do, and have a glass of wine and put your feet up and have a glass of wine, and oh, I've had such a day, have a glass of wine. And that's just the cycle that we get into, and there's a time and a place for it, absolutely, definitely, but we just need to, the education needs to start, because I think, so growing up, so in secondary school, and you're doing biology and you're doing all of your kind of your sex ed and everything like that, so growing up, nobody made me aware of what alcohol would do if I was carrying a baby. Nobody told me at all. I'm 44 now, and if I wasn't raising children who'd been damaged by alcohol, I wouldn't know what I know about it. It's only because I'm having to deal with it. We're still not educated. It should be, in my opinion, part of normal lessons in school. It should be all over girls' changing rooms, in PE, in secondary school. So that's just planted in people's brains, and like, oh, right, you know, well, when the time comes, absolutely, because those things could happen. So I'm just not going to do it. But we didn't know. We didn't know before, or people knew. Lots of people knew. It's been a thing for a very, very long time, but there's no outward education about it.
Mass communication of that message. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
There hasn't been,
I think,
you know, no education around it. And, you know, I'm aware of children in the UK at 9-10 years old having lessons about drugs and the harm of, you know, taking drugs, basically, and what the damage that they will do to your body. But alcohol isn't mentioned, or if alcohol is mentioned, it's certainly not given the same stage.
Doesn't have the same gravity as drug use, does it?
And it's certainly not connected to pregnancy in any way. So, you know, we sound like we've got a problem with alcohol, and that is not at all the case. That's not what we're saying here. It's simply a case of understanding. It would be like going skydiving and not listening to the video to warn you of the risks beforehand. Like you know, go into these things knowing. That's it. That's all we're saying about alcohol, is that there needs to be more education there. And if you know and you choose to drink, then that's fine.
Yeah, but we need to. The most important thing, I think, for us that because we work alongside with, you know, alongside a lot of families and children and young people with FASD, and there is just the stigma is the crippling thing. The stigma around it is the crippling thing, and that's what we need to be rid of. Because I have found myself in situations where I will be with certainly medical professionals who, on the whole, still so many know so little about it. Mm-hmm. But when I'm explaining my situation, or whatever the professional might be, and I'm explaining the situation of my family dynamic, and I explain about my children, the ages they are, and then I start talking about what diagnosis they've got, and so I'm just kind of rhyming things off. And then if at that they kind of don't know, or they've had no reason to have known straight off that my children are adopted, I get met with it's quite often it's been visible, like you don't, I don't know, it's as if, you know, you just kind of happily blurted that out, that your children have got this, which means that you did this to them. And then, you know, when further down the line, I then, you know, if I'm having to tell some kind of story or timeline, and go, you know, and so I adopted them at this age. Oh, right, I thought, you know, what did you think? I didn't look the type. Is that what you thought? You know, and it's just, that is what we need to stamp out, that stigma, because that is what's making everything so difficult, and that needs to just go, because there's just no room for it. And it's, you know, it is the Western world's #1 top learning disability, and it is 100% preventable. But did we say that there's some people saying it's not completely preventable?
There are conversations that I've heard at conferences. I can't remember what country I was in or the nationality of the people saying it, but international crowds, and, you know, understanding and views and things differ dramatically. But and I don't know where I sit with this. But yeah, they were saying that it's not 100% preventable, because when we're talking about people with alcoholism and addictions,
right? I understand what you mean.
It's not a preventable behaviour, which
exactly
comes back to society failing them because they have not been supported correctly.
I think that I would agree with that, because alcoholism, and, you know,
is an addiction, which is a disease, and it's not something that and there will be people who have found out they're pregnant and thought, this is it, this is where I'm going to be able to get some help and stop this. There will be people who are able to do that, and there will be lots of people who are unable to do that. So I think I can understand now, because I couldn't understand when I'd read that somewhere, and I was thinking, well, yeah, it is preventable because it's only caused by alcohol, but obviously in a situation like that, you could argue that, and then there's always a reason why somebody has an addiction.
And that's my thinking around, like, even if we're not talking to the level of an addiction and alcoholism, I believe there is always a reason why. So whilst I don't know if I'm struggling with the term and the definition of preventable, because if you're suffering from alcoholism, then maybe it's not preventable. But if you're suffering from anything else, if you're in a position of domestic violence and alcohol is your coping mechanism, but you're not an alcoholic, is that preventable? There's all different scenarios that make this as complex as the condition itself.
Which is why, when we know it's what we are dealing with, when it has happened and we know what we're dealing with, all of these different scenarios are exactly why we need to draw a line and not look back to the why and could it have been prevented, because it just means nothing now. We just got to step forward and continue going forward and provide the scaffolding that the parents and the carers, whether they be biological or adoptive or wider family, whatever the situation, will provide scaffolding for them and for the child or the young person who is living with it. And that's the only way forward. And there's no real blame, because the blame brings the shame, and it's what's making a really cruel disability even more difficult for people to have to live with.
It has been proven that with early intervention, early support in place, these children can thrive. These children can...
It's like a difference of night and day what the outcomes can be with early diagnosis and early intervention. Like, I get so excited when I on some of the forums that I'm on, and I see people who have got toddlers, and they know what they're dealing with, and they're able to say, right, we're about to start nursery, what should we do? And then everyone's like, oh, right, okay, this and this, OT, you need this, get this, ask for this. And it's I would sell my soul to be able to go back a decade and to know what I was dealing with and get something in place. My children wouldn't have the struggles that they have now as teenagers if I'd have been able to do that. And so, with the right scaffolding, that's what it is. It's scaffolding around every area, but also the scaffolding is like, imagine it's like that scaffolding there, and there's like a walkway to another set of scaffolding, but that walkway can't stay up if there's not scaffolding on both sides. So that's the parent and carer, and that's the child or the young person, and they've both got to be surrounded with scaffolding, or it's just going to crumble, basically, if they haven't got that. Yeah. And I think the earlier that we know, it's easier to put that scaffolding in place, because
Definitely.
You're not hit crisis point at an age that's really, really difficult. You can slowly put the scaffold there yourself, really, if you're dealing with it from a really early age.
Yeah.
That's the way I've never really thought about it like that, but you could do that yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot. It's not a curable condition in any way, but there is so much that can be done that can better the lives of everybody involved. And with our message of no shame, no blame, we need to push that. Push it. We want everybody listening to this to share that message, because if we can create a world where there is no shame and no blame around FASD, then people who have drank during pregnancy will have no problem saying, you know what, yeah, this happened before I knew I was pregnant, because I'll just add there, around 50% of pregnancies are unplanned. So we have a whole nother thing there with people simply not knowing that they're pregnant and carrying on life as normal because society says on a Friday and Saturday night we go out and have a few drinks because we've had a hard week. But you know, we need to create this world where women feel safe to come forward and say, I consumed alcohol. Can you please put that in my notes so that if my child ever faces any difficulty, all these professionals can jump up and do their job.
And make it so much easier. And that's why it's so unhelpful, the kind of recent press activity about people saying it's you know, it's a woman's right to do whatever she wants to do to her own body, and it's a nanny state and you shouldn't be documenting alcohol consumption on a child's medical records. And you know, why would you feel like that if you didn't feel ashamed of it? Why would you even be as emotional about it and have such strong feelings if you weren't feeling attacked or being told that you were doing something you shouldn't be doing? It's so, if we can just get people to just accept it for what it is, it's, you know, it's a, more often than not, it's a huge accident that happens.
Yeah.
It's a huge accident. People accidentally drink alcohol when they are pregnant and they don't know that they are pregnant, or, you know, and nobody would, I think if there was any other kind of disability or brain damage that was caused by something else happening, I think people have a lot of shame about the amount of alcohol they drink anyway.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people feel they drink too much or they shouldn't be drinking as much as they do. So, you know, it's such a complex area, isn't it, for so many different reasons. But we will never shut up about it, about no shame, no blame. And, you know, more than once I have challenged professionals who think it's okay to say to me about, you know, have something negative to say about what happened to my children, thinking they can say that to me and that I will be on their side about that because it wasn't me who consumed the alcohol, and they've all got a shock at how wrong they were. But, you know, it's that kind of such a, what's the word? Archaic?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that attitude that we just want to be rid of because it's unhelpful and it's causing huge barriers.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and something I want to point out very, very quickly whilst we're talking about this is that if there are people out there who hear this and think, oh crap, like that's me, I had a drink during pregnancy, or I'm currently pregnant, or anything like that, we're not in any way trying to spark any fear with what we're saying. We don't want anybody stressing. We don't want, you know, there is no need to worry. What we're trying to say here is there is so much that can be done if you're brave enough to stand up and say, this is what my baby was exposed to, please help me.
And again, I think it's really important to reiterate things that were said in previous episodes, where if you think of, everyone's got a friend who can drink 4 times what you can drink and look absolutely fine. Everyone's got a friend who after 1 glass is on the table and needs to go home. So everybody processes alcohol in a different way, at a different speed. So there is a huge chance that if you haven't had much alcohol to drink, that it will have had no impact on your baby. That, you know, if you know, we don't want people to be scared. The most important thing to do is, at the point that you do know you are pregnant, absolutely stop consuming alcohol then. But anything before that, there's such a small chance. What the thing that we do know for certain is that there is no safe limit. That's all we know. We don't know. We just know that there isn't a safe limit of alcohol to drink. So the best thing is to not drink. But for all of the reasons we've just talked about for the past 25 minutes, sometimes that just doesn't happen, and it's not possible to happen because you don't even know that you're pregnant. And so we want people to know that the chances are really, really small if you've just been drinking a small amount of alcohol, but it is there. So
yeah,
the whole benefit of having that recorded would be that if that small chance kind of came to fruition and your child started to have problems, which would be around access and education and school, nursery age, that's most likely when you're going to see some kind of problems. And if you might be listening to this and you might have children at that age, and then school are maybe talking about things like ADHD or autism. If at that point you think, I didn't realise until I was nearly 3 months pregnant that I was pregnant, and I was still just drinking the normal amount of alcohol that I normally would. That's such vital information that someone needs to know, not to say you shouldn't have done that, not to be used for any other reason, but to say, oh, actually, we're going to go down this pathway because this could be the new damage that we're looking at, not that neuro difference.
Yeah.
And it's so vitally important that we're able to do that, and that we're able to do that in a way that nobody feels attacked or ashamed. And we're getting there, and with the new NICE quality standards that we're going to be launching next year, because now there'll be so many FASD families hopefully listening to this thinking, what pathway is that you're talking about? There is no pathway. There isn't yet, but there will be very soon. It's coming. So we need to just start and clear the decks of the shame and just get rid of it. And I know it's easier said than done, but I don't think it's wishful thinking. I think if we systematically work at it and challenge it at every turn, and make people understand the reason behind it all, then we will eventually be success.
And it's another one of our messages. Something else that we say all the time is that we didn't know, and we do now. So we didn't know the harm that alcohol caused. Proof Alliance, formerly MOFAS, the Minnesota organization for FASD, they have a fantastic video that just shows, we didn't know it was unsafe to smoke on airplanes, but now we do, so we don't do it. We didn't know that it was unsafe to ride in cars without seatbelts, but now we know, so we don't do it anymore. And they bring alcohol into that in the same way, alcohol in pregnancy in the same way. And it's not about not knowing, it's very much about whether or not you know you're pregnant, as we've said, but it's very much about knowing the harm it can cause. And, there's so many midwives out there as well who aren't communicating this message, who aren't having these conversations around that, or, even public health messaging around the dangers. So there's a lot of people that not only don't know if they're pregnant and then make the decision to stop drinking alcohol, or don't understand the damage and the risks associated with consuming alcohol during pregnancy, because alcohol is more damaging to that unborn baby, that fetus, than heroin, than cocaine, than marijuana, and any other substance that people think, oh God, no, you can't smoke during pregnancy. Well,
so few people know that, and that is quite shocking when you learn that. But then if you do a little bit of digging about what alcohol does to your body, then you're like, oh, yeah, of course it is. It is way more dangerous, and it's so, I think so few people. But I think what ties it up nicely, so all of those, we're talking about drawing a line, and we want to draw the line, because when we know better, we do better. And we know better now. We know better now. And we're like, oh, when we know better, we do better. And that is like our little motto. And we do know better now, so we need to do better, and we need to help other people gain that knowledge so that they know better and do better. And that's how everything will change.
Yeah, and that's it. And we want people to feel comfortable having this conversation. We want people to start talking about FASD, to start talking about alcohol in pregnancy, and for people who don't feel comfortable necessarily having those conversations, that's what we're here for. Direct them to some of these podcasts, because we're going to do plenty of them. We've got quite a lot to say. We hope to become a resource that can be used by everybody to really, really get an understanding of this condition.
That's the plan. So that sums up today's episode. Really, we need to start chipping away at this, and when we know better, we do better, and that in itself, that essence, that there's no blame, there's no shred of blame in that. Just knowing better and doing better. So let's do better.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you all. Next week is going to be a very exciting episode. So
very, very exciting.
Yeah.
A huge name in the world of FASD is going to be talking to us. So keep looking out on our social media to find out who that's going to be.
We're going to put some spoilers through the week. Yeah, very excited. So we hope you join us then.